Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome back to City Skylines 2. Apologies on not having 2 episodes last week. Long story short, I was sick combined with a few other things that popped up. Just basically meant I wasn't able to take it on. And I do apologize for that because I am still very thoroughly invested and excited about the future of Pinebrook Pass. So as always, thank you so much for choosing to hang out with me today in the midst of everything that is going on in the world. And let's get right on to it. First, I redid this. If you remember, we did a little sidewalk going into our elementary school. I basically wanted to clean it up. It was a little bit messy, it was a little bit wonky, and to be quite honest, we're probably going to be expanding our education system. So I want to make this not the end all be all for this little pedestrian walkway. As amazing as it is, I also think it's a little excessively tall. I do wish I could, have it just a little bit lower, but that's all right. And then of course, as we talked about in the last episode, we are getting dangerously close to the country meeting the city, but we're not going to do anything about that. We're not going to move this around. This is going to remain, and we're simply going to butt up against it. Now, we're not losing a terrible amount of money for everything that is considered. However, we are going to look and see what sort of production cycles we have. So as of right now, we are vastly overproducing our grain, which isn't a problem at all. We can export it. So that's not a bad deal. I do kind of think that we need another access point, basically. Over here, we do have a little bit of surplus in the livestock area. And then over in the vegetables, that's where we need to work on the most. Being able to make that with a little bit of extra, I think we need this for material goods. I think we need like all 3. So if we can work on that. And then also our industry over in the wood section of the world. And whoa, well, there we go. I don't know that I've ever actually seen a natural disaster here, but that's a tornado. Tornado, fantastic looking. Actually, it's pretty good. So I was considering building over here, but I think we're gonna have to wait till this sucker stops and continues on his way, or on its way well beyond that. So anyways, we may be able to get a really good forest industry going over here once that tornado leaves, which is going to allow us, it's one of our biggest expenses, I think. Or at least has one of our largest deficits outside of petrochemicals. So we are gonna have to work on petrochemicals potentially in the future, but outside of that, we really need to work on all of those other things. Although there are rumors that it really all doesn't matter in retrospect, simply because there's a theory going around that the economy doesn't really matter, which is very unfortunate if that is the case. But I've rambled on for quite long enough. The plans for today, we are going to expand our industry. So we're going to work on industry and we are going to work on our education. We currently have 2 elementary schools. And in fact, you know what I could do? I have yet to create a district. And I think that's really applicable and has a lot of good implications to what we want to do for our district area. So I think it makes a lot of sense to divide along, I don't know, like this line perhaps, to where our district encompass this side of the lake. Yeah, let's do that actually. So we're actually going to rope in this neighborhood, and it works just like anything else that is kind of drag clickable, which is really nice and really handy. We're actually going to go all along the inside of this, and we're going to work on down the river. And we're going to loosely encompass all of this. Just like that. All right, so Parker Creek. Let's stick it to this area. There we go. This is one of the better tools that we have in City Skylines, I think. Just being able to, instead of working on the brush, which is the old system, we're able to really get that nailed in. So Parker Creek is going to be limited there. And then our district over here is going to, do I need to make a new one? I think I may need to make a new one. There we go. We got Thornton Terrace. Okay, interesting. So now that we have that, we can select and operate that. Now we could do the same for like our other resources, our police, our fire, our everything, if we wanted to. And Parker Creek is actually going to be, I don't know. We'll name it Nexus for now. Nexus, I'm gonna be able to name you, so go ahead and tell me in the comment section. This is one of those deals where if you are a member of the channel, you can have something named after you. In this case, I'm gonna force Nexus to have a district named after him. So that's going to be pleasant for him, hopefully. Hopefully he doesn't find it too weird, but that's gonna work for us at the moment. Now, one thing I do want to mention is this whole system still doesn't work right. The way that water operates in City Skylines 2 is a bit unknown, and again, it's more of an elasticy feeling that doesn't bring much joy or comfort to me whatsoever. So we kind of have to leave this awkward building thing alone until we can figure out what's going on or until a patch addresses it. So we're not going to worry about that today because, well, I just don't feel like it. Now, what we are going to do, we're going to work on our industry first, then we'll get into our education. And the reason why I'm going to have these be a little bit different and spaced out is because we are going to continue to get our urban sprawl with our low density residential in, because that's going to be important. However, we may potentially get into public transportation. Now, public transportation isn't something that is super formalized in any way, shape, or form in the region that I live in. Now, that's going to be a challenge because, for one, I don't really know how to tackle it effectively, but two, we are trying to build a semi-authentic region. And that means that, like, as much as I want to use trams, I don't know that I'm going to use trams. We may work with buses for now and see how buses operate and how they work. And if we progress on, then we can potentially get into trams or work on trains or do things of that nature. So what we're going to do now is we are going to expand our farm. You can see we have a little bit of region left, and we got a ton of farmland over here, a ton of farmland across the pond, across the river, and a lot of oil right here as well, which is extremely unfortunate considering the location that it is. We may not end up exploiting that over there. So we have plenty of space for some extra stuff. And again, we need more vegetable farms. And so we're just going to simply start and add some good things. Easy enough. There's one chicken or vegetable farm. We can't actually place this farm over there. So let's go ahead and get our... Can I draw that? I don't know that I can make that work. It doesn't look like it's going to let me. Okay, which is not a big deal. We'll just draw another road kind of off over into here and make that work for us. There we go. Well done. As awkward as that little strip is, it's not a huge deal unless I were to bring this out a little bit. Well, that looks really good actually. And then we can maybe bring this forward. Right like that. Sweet. Farmers' fields are buttoned up to each other. We have a couple more, so I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. And again, one of the awesome parts about this whole section is that we can make it work within our means, which means we don't have to be super limited. We can make this line up as well as we can, just because farmers' fields do tend to be like that. All right, cool. That's going to allow us the maximum yield for what we can purchase at the moment in terms of our production. And once things go a little bit faster, we should be able to see our production go up. Awesome. We're already bringing 8.2 tons in, and that's going to allow us quite a bit. There we go. Oh, wow. Okay, I think we're flip-flopping depending on the number of employees that we can get. So that's going to be awesome. We need to go over to our forest industrial sector, and we are going to have to build a little bit of kind of a custom highway access, which we could actually do here first. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that real quick. I didn't think I'd be able to, but I think it makes the most sense. All right, so it's not absolutely perfect or fantastic, but that worked really well. And if you saw at the very end, just being able to bridge that gap a little bit easier than we would have normally is pretty darn nice. Good. All right, so that will allow us a little bit of an easier access for our farming community to be able to push things off in the way that they need to go. Everything should be pointed the right direction. Great. So we got that farming access, and to be quite frank, I don't feel like we need to do much else beyond that for this area. Now, again, we do have some resources here in the near future. We may be able to access a big, huge mining industry over there, but those can have their own intersections. And I'm not terribly concerned. My concern is that this has some breathing room, so if people need to come off and be able to access their own locations, that they're able to do so. And of course, to me, it almost makes sense to have some little community areas. We're gonna do something a little unconventional, I should say, just ever so slightly. And we are going to say have a tiny little, oh, how do you call it? Almost like just a really small hometown, as it were. Oh, that's very ugly. That's super duper ugly. And we're almost going to basically just do just a really small little community over here that just has, you know, just a tiny little bit, a couple of general stores, nothing absolutely crazy by any means. Just to be like, hey, this is where things used to be. This is a tiny little community. We're all kind of in this together, as it were, and just kind of create a small little farming space that would have been relatively appropriate for the place that we are living in. There we go. Just a few houses of some random smatterings in different sizes for just a really small community. A couple of grain feed stores that I wish we could target, but we can't really actually kind of target that. But just to give us a little bit of space, just a tiny little community that the larger rural community will probably appreciate, but that would work as we tackle the sprawl, as it were, over here. So we're not hemorrhaging too terribly bad. I'm okay with the progress and the rate that we're working in here. But we do need to tackle a few more things. And while we will get the forestry industry, oh, we're in fall. Ooh, look at this. This looks fantastic. Oof, I really love that. I love how it looks. Ooh, fall looks great. And even seeing these looks good in the fall. Goodness gracious, I like it a lot. All right, so what we need to do is we have more than enough for the elementary schools. The elementary school system is awesome, but we need a high school. And we need a high school that's available to everyone. I do believe a high school, okay, so it can hold, I'm surprised that it can hold so little. But I think we can maybe work around that as much as possible. But this does need to be accessible. It needs to be accessible to everyone, even if they have to drive a little bit to get there. So we certainly could plop a high school right next to our elementary school. Lots of small towns do it. We're at a population of about 4,200 now. So I don't know that that would be entirely appropriate. This space is really good, but at the same time, we have a gym section that is, or like a track stadium area, which is redonkulously massive. I mean, it's a chonker. It's a chonker and a half, to put it very lightly. And so I don't know if it's appropriate or not. And if it was, we would probably do something like an alleyway right here that might circle around everything and kind of enclose it all. Or we could even do a 2-lane road that might be a little more dedicated. Maybe like a one-way road. Ooh, I kind of like the idea of a one-way road that works to really bring the sense of community into this space. But again, I don't know that it would work there. Simply because, I'm not kidding you guys, if you haven't played this yet, this thing is massive. Let's go ahead and place it here. I'm okay with experimenting, and we can always, yeah, look at the monstrosity of that. I don't even know that it could fit over there. So we're blowing lots of money just by doing this and experimenting. This may have to be where it is. And if that's the case, then that's the case. It's not a huge deal. But I do think we still need that one-way road to kind of make it appropriate. Because then we can pull buses through and things of that nature, and it won't be too negatively impactful. Goodness gracious, let's go ahead and purchase this square right there, and that should allow us. Okay, cool. So that does allow us to move this around. And we could totally plop it right there. Oh, I like that a lot. Okay, that works for me. And now we have to kind of juggle and toggle our way through without making it awkward. And that's going to be the hardest part here. And I get that's not the prettiest. That's not the prettiest at all, actually. I really actually pretty much hate everything about that. Now, okay, we're working on making this our one-way. And we almost might have to do just a little bit of directional. Let's see, 135 degrees. That's not bad. And I think we can work with that in the future. Now, what we could do is we could easily attach this. But I do want to emphasize that we are going to bridge across here in several places. So we've chosen not to do that here in an effort to make the high school a little more approachable. But that would mean that we are working on the idea of making this much more of a feasible option, which isn't a bad thing at all. Actually, I kind of like the idea of how this progresses up, as long as they kept that, and they will. And all we have to do is then make it a little bit of a level playing field that wouldn't go up too ridiculously high. And that's actually not bad. And then we have this kind of backdrop with the way that this works. I could probably move this. I can relocate it. And if I turn snapping off, we can, oh, I'd have to move the whole thing. Oh, sweet heavenly mercy. And there's also this issue here. Oh my goodness gracious. We can move this for free, which I do think is a little humorous and a little ridiculous. But that does give us the ability to look here and be like, oh, okay, that's obviously not going to work here. So we need to kind of flatten the terrain a little bit. I think we can work with it, not by doing that. But if we can just, let's go ahead and tackle this as our starting point. And I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking this is a little bit bonkers crazy, but you may have to just trust me a little bit as we work on contouring this to where it needs to go. This is a little bit bonkers, so we're going to use our slope terrain tool to kind of level that out so it's not so absolutely intense. We're going to do the same over here because this is a bit bonkers. So this gives us the ability to smooth that out. And now if I were to relocate this, we should have a teensy weensy bit easier time. It's still really bad. Oh, that's really bad. But I don't want to keep dropping $300,000. Oh, this is going to take quite a bit of terraforming, I think. Well, that took way longer than anticipated, unfortunately. But I gotta say, I think the output's pretty cool. Outside of some awkward things, I mean, this is one of the things about City Skylines that we really can't change at the moment. There's no amount of terraforming that would allow me to get a better solution filled in over here. But I still think it works pretty well. We do have some slope issues. This is gonna be a heck of a thing to try and drain with all the downslopes here. But overall, I do believe that it accomplishes what we want. And then we actually have the space to come in here and make kind of a park area if we so wanted to, if we so pleased, which I do think would make for some really good park scenarios. Straight over to the top, I don't know that we could simply, work from A to B without some issues. There we go. Just a small little bridges that kind of just make things work. And we can decorate this. I'll decorate this at a later time. I do feel like I've wasted your time here. And I know that's probably wildly inaccurate, but it's still how I feel. And I want to make sure that I am being respectful of your guys' time while working on all this. And then we also, we have the ability to make some pleasantries around here. Now, naturally, there's going to be lots of access to this from a game standpoint, football and all that, track and everything. So we do want to make sure that we do have access points, because we will want to work on that from a perspective of our, for like transportation stuff. So it would be good to be able to come in and, be able to have access to the game. And due to a fun little trick that I learned from One Party Elite, which I will put the video in the description, of course, is that we are able to kind of drag and drop this to where it's a little, we could probably go ahead and start over on this section where we can kind of modify exactly where we want our parks, or not our parks, our pathways to be. So we can totally hug this, and then if we were to upgrade, we can kind of lean in a little bit and push these boundaries to where they're just going to be right like that. And then look at that. Our park area and our pathways now very seamlessly move on into those sections, which I think really works well. So we're going to put a small playground in here on top of that. I do wish I could put small playgrounds on pedestrian pathways, but that doesn't seem to work because, again, not everyone's going to be able to watch the game. Kids, believe me, kids aren't going to watch an entire football game probably. So being able to give them some access to some things is going to be really nice. And you know what? What if we put like just a few? I wonder what would even go here. To be honest, I can't tell you, but it may work out to where there's like a coffee shop or something. Now you could go get or grab a bite to eat before we move on over here. Now we do need to continue our access on this point, and we will kind of wrap up this part of the thing. I do kind of really like angles, but we do have to be mindful of the topography. And then we could totally move into a sector like this. Just like that. Upgrade. And boom. We have our one-way enter-only area, which should allow us to have a less of a traffic issue. Slap a roundabout there, because why the holy heck not? And look at that, we already have 55 people. Now this will encompass both of these areas, so we do kind of need to be, let's go ahead and expand our boundaries of Thornton Terrace. Ooh, we do have some policies that we can work on. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and expand them all the way out to here, so that way we can rope in this small little town. And in fact, this would be pretty relevant in total. That way kids would have access to the closest area of everything, but they may not be able to actually have one locally. Those little towns in this little small space, again, kind of supporting the farming families that are over here. And then we've got all the access and doing all the things. 90 out of 800 isn't too bad. And again, we can drop some parks in here. What's going to go in here, I wonder? Crap fish granules. All right. 60 some. What do we got? What do we got? Cat in a cabin. That doesn't sound fun. Bumber fuel. And bumber fuel again. We got 2 bumber fuels working over there. All right, but I think that works. That looks really good as well. Once I'm able to figure out the keys thing, again, I recommend Party Elite. We could do that here, but I don't think we're going to worry about it too often at the moment. We're going to level this little bit out, and then we do have some things that we need to start working on that will affect the community. So at the time, we still need only low density. Medium and high density are great. We have commercial demand, industrial demand, and we have our first office demand as well. Now, offices are going to be a little bit tricky. I don't know if we could go ahead and just drop them right here and that would work out, or if we need to do something else. Also, I did mention pathways. Let's just drop a pathway here. Can we even reach? Oh, we can. Cool. There we go. That actually works pretty well. That gives those kids access as well. They could ride their bikes or do whatever and come over to school through that point, which I think is really awesome. We don't have enough customers over here. Almost meet. Yeah, we're going to have to figure that out. And we need to expand once again. So we are going to start pushing the boundaries again over here, because I need to add more residential and work on that. So we're going to add a couple new neighborhoods. And then we're going to figure out exactly what we need to do in terms of our demand for industrial, commercial, and office, because we really need to get that cranked out. Fantastic new little area we got going on here. And again, what we can do here, I actually saw this just the other day, is that like there were a few roads, I should say, not there was, of houses that were kind of mixed into this residential area. That was literally just a small strip of these taller houses that we've been putting elsewhere. So this is kind of medium residential. But then it was all surrounded by all of these bigger, typical North American regional housing structures. And I thought that was really interesting. So I wanted to add them in there. Of course, those are going to get gobbled up super duper fast. There we go. And that's fine with me, because it actually allows me to be able to expand as quickly as I need to. And then, of course, we're just going to butt straight up. We're going to get some bigger houses here. They're going to butt straight up, because we're at the point where I feel like our economy would just be trying to push everything they could on them, which makes a lot of sense in the current state of affairs in the region. And then, of course, we're probably just going to do that right there. They wouldn't really want to be right up close to the highway. Again, a lot of them probably wouldn't have a choice. They would just simply buy what was available, rather than be super picky in terms of demand. And then, yeah, there we go. So that's going to tackle that for now. We're able to expand and push out on that front. Let me go ahead and drop these guys, because they're already being taken. And then, again, we can drop just a smidgen, just like a little dabble of some commercial, kind of right next to the schools, just a couple of shops. Nothing too crazy whatsoever, and that should kind of satiate the demand for our commercial. And we are just rapidly expanding as fast as humanly possible. And I really don't see any other reason not to just straight up just have this go right past here. And we're just going to dump what I call dumb filling, where we are just, our goal is only to provide the maximum amount of coverage that we can possibly do in any given space, just so we can fill up the demand. Because when it comes to industrial, I don't feel like there's a ton of regulation on what is allowed and what isn't allowed. That'll knock out all of that industrial for the time being. And our winter is still looking fantastic. There we go. And then our next is to continue tackling commercial, but also work on our office space. I feel like we can kind of have an office industrial, I say industrial, like almost like an industrial park, but really focus on our blend of commercial and industrial. And then also, this is going to be our first chance to be able to really truly work on our new space here, which is going to be our mixed. This is what I'm super excited about. I love mixed housing. North American apartment styles with commercial on the bottom and apartments on top. They are some of my favorite things to do because they just simply utilize everything that is available in the land, instead of, just making apartments, which doesn't have a lot of economic value to it. Being able to have this mixed residential and basically saying, hey, people, you can live here. Ooh, we were not paying attention to contour lines. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like after I smooth this sucker out. Yeah, we have some major contour lines to look into as we work on this. Interesting. Okay, let's chill. This is where some unique solutions are going to have to arise as we tackle this. I don't know quite how far I need to push this, but we may kind of have to end up really looking at stopping right about here for now, simply because this is some intense differences, and I almost want to flatten that out and turn that into something maybe like a more of a high density, or I wish we could focus on wealth level right off the bat, which would be an interesting solution simply because, oh, that looks ugly as crap. But I like the idea of being able to say, okay, these are automatically going to be fancier houses, as it were, because it's simply, that's what would happen. We would have kind of those setups ready to rumble in the jungle. Now we are going to go ahead and stick to our solution here. Slap one of them roundabouts all day, every day. All day. And then eventually we may key this out. I always jokingly call it quay, which the last series I did, people got really, really bothered by it. But I always taught that it was quay. It's all good. That's not too shabby. So this is where we're going to build our mixed residential. And we're not going to go too terribly fancy. All right, so I know this looks very convoluted, and to be quite frank, it really kind of is. But as I mentioned, this is what life is like. And I'm going to repeatedly say that because it is frustrating and it sometimes doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think that's kind of the point, because there's a lot of this that doesn't really make sense. There's roundabouts everywhere, but it is quite representative of what's going on. So what we're going to do is we are going to work on our mixed residential. And I think we're actually going to drop our mixed residential all along this contour here. And I think we're going to, because again, this is a mix of commercial and residential. So it makes sense that they're going to be on kind of these main thoroughfares. Now, whether that is kind of a true reality or not is up for debate, but we are talking about slapping these things, you know, just right up against everything that's going on and trying to maximize the best use of space possible. But then we also have kind of business sectors who are just coming in and trying to do whatever they can, wherever they can, and make a living on top of commercial just coming in and doing the exact same thing. So while there is a lot going on, I completely understand. There is so much that goes on in the area in which I live in, and it's fun. It's fun to see the evolution. It's also absolutely bonkers, but it's been a blast. It's been a blast to see how this area has evolved, and again, butting up to that idea of some residential areas that wouldn't normally experience this type of growth and seeing them work their magic as well. So we go over to production. As you remember, we got our grain, livestock, and veggies. We are pretty much at a surplus for all of them. That's not going to remain forever, but we do have lots of surpluses in other areas, especially our furniture, which I do find slightly humorous. And then again, retail meals consumers, we're at a surplus, which is exactly where we want to be. And this is the type of area, again, these are the types of people who, you know, I'm not trying to rag on you, but there are lots and lots of dog parks. Oh my word, there's lots of dog parks. So it's definitely a thing that happens. It's definitely a thing that people just absolutely adore and have fun with. And then this is what I wish. I can't place that there because it won't work for my area, but I would just absolutely love to be able to put some parks in other places such as this. Can I squeeze that? Not without destroying the building. And I really, really, really don't want to destroy the building. There we go. Slap a couple of playgrounds in there. We got our playground in over there. And now to kind of wrap up this episode, we have an issue with our power supply. We are drastically out of that capacity. Now, what we could do is we could go over to our gas power plant. We could rocket into a geothermal plant. Converts underground heat into electricity while generating only some air and noise pollution. Let's go ahead and unlock that. Now, geothermal plants cost $750,000 and they need a good space. Now, the thing is that I think the maximum they can produce is 0 to 150,000. Okay. But the kicker is that if I do that here, which I can, totally could, we're already going to maximize out, but we could release our gas plant. And our gas plant, you got to remember, is fogging up and causing issues downwind. So whether or not this is the smartest thing to do, I do think it's the thing that we will do, and we will kind of deal with the repercussions later. $1.4 million for even doing that and plopping that down, which is massive. That's a big deal. And again, we can just right off the bat, go ahead and just bulldoze that sucker down. There we go. Awesome. And now we need some access to it, which is not going to be a problem whatsoever as we drag and drop our access. We can make a kind of, actually it would be kind of cool to have a geothermal station access kind of deal. And again, this is where we can kind of have some fun with our, there we go. We have access, we have power. We need to connect it to high range power because that will allow us to be able to trade if I'm not mistaken. Or can we go ahead and do that anyways? I don't think we can, unless we were to put a transformer station. So we're going to slap that transformer station down. We're going to go there, and now we should be able to export. Perfect. Fantastic. Now we don't have that right there. Of course, that's just going to say, hey, power line's not connected, even though that's not true. And that would bring us, oh, yeah, we got a lot of stuff we got to work on here, but I think it'd be a good idea to keep it there. And new power lines to be built off the plant, power output, add another power line connection. I think we're okay, honestly. We could jack up the service fees just a little bit. I don't know why I would want to do that. We don't need an increase in production or anything of that number. And when it comes to these guys, let's see what happens when we knock this down to 0. We're going to turn everything down to 0 to 8 and see if that gives some incentives. And if it ends up tanking us too much, that's okay, but I don't imagine that it will. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we've kind of completed our next step, which is really exciting. It's a slow, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pacing myself so I don't make mistakes that are too costly and or just cause issues for myself in terms of content updates. I do apologize for missing last week, but as mentioned, I was sick. Long story short, wasn't feeling great, not good enough to at least be able to work on this sort of thing. But we do have a pretty awesome looking town, one that does need some customers. I get that 100%. One that is currently on fire. Look at that. That's super fun. Except for not really at all. We have decent fire coverage. We have a little, we could probably afford another police station, or we could tack on, there we go. That's going to allow us a few more police cars to be able to tackle the issues at hand. But we are expanding, pushing into new directions, and doing all sorts of good things. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be done with today's episode. I really enjoy this city though, and I hope you're enjoying it too. As always, we didn't accomplish all the things that I wanted to, but I hope that you're able to give me direction. The direction is something that I'll always take, something that I'll always appreciate, and one that lets me know that you're involved and you're invested, I guess you could say. So that's all I got today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.